Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6 o'clock on the nose, so we'll call the meeting to order. I just wanted to make a few comments about a teleconference that I was on this afternoon there with Premier Ford and Minister Clark and Minister Jones and Minister Elliott and General Hillier this afternoon for an hour there. So they were discussing the rollout of the vaccines. So in phase one, there will be some Pfizer, 1.4 million Pfizer vaccines and 1 million Moderna vaccines coming out. So vaccinate 1.2 million people. So they're going to center mainly on the long-term care homes and the healthcare workers first of all. And they're actually setting up 23 sites across Ontario, and that'll be announced here in the next 24 to 48 hours as to where those 23 sites are going to be for the deep freezers and that and the equipment there. So, and initially will be set up so the hospital staff will be doing the administration of these vaccines until some of the other vaccines roll out, and then the health units will take over after that and manage all the vaccination centers. Phase two that starts April 1st, we'll see basically a 6 to 9 month period where the public health units and the pharmacies will then roll out and be the ones that are in charge of vaccinations there. So, and then phase three will be just a normal vaccination practice similar to what we have now with the health units. So that was about an hour teleconference this afternoon that Major Hillier made most of the announcements there. So hopefully that's good news. In the next week or two, we should know where the vaccination sites are and how soon the vaccines will actually be rolled out. So just a little bit of update there from that meeting this afternoon. So there was, I think, 444 municipalities on the conference call this afternoon at 3:30. So with that, I'll carry on with the meeting. I'll ask the clerk for the roll call, please.
Good evening, Your Worship. All members are present. Thank you.
Item number 3 is approval of the agenda. Be it resolved that City Council approves the agenda as printed. Moved by Councillor Whalen, second by Councillor Ferrier. All in favor? That is carried. And a declaration of special council meeting. A motion be resolved that Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores declares this meeting a special meeting of Council in accordance with Section 7 of the Procedural Bylaw 2008-160. Mover and second by Councillor Jelly, second by Councillor MacArthur. All in favor? That is carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature tonight? Seeing none, we'll move right into the new business. Presentation 2021 Municipal Operating Budget. Laura Lee, you're on.
We'll do our best to get through this with the mask on and be able to see my notes. So good evening, Mayor and Council, staff. Welcome to the first 2021 budget presentation. This evening we'll be dealing with the operating budget. So the flow of the meeting will be, I will present the tax scenarios. We'll look at an overview of where we're sitting versus our 2020 budget, and then we'll dive into the the individual departments. The directors and managers are here to assist with any questions that we may not have covered in the presentation. Council was provided all of the detailed provisional budget sheets on Friday along with the operating projects. So if there's any questions, and like I said, anything that we did not cover in any particular slide, please feel free to ask any questions as we go through the presentation. So just some general comments. We've been working on the budget for over 2 months now. We've had a number of staff department meetings, manager meetings, committee meetings, and so this is a accumulation of all of those meetings and plans that have been put together. All of the overall wage reductions as per the organizational chart that was changed in June. We have reviewed all of the departmental training plans and memberships to ensure that we are sending staff on the appropriate training and getting memberships where we get good value from. We also realized some growth in 2020. Taxable assessment growth of 0.6, which is resulting in a tax levy growth of 0.3, or $47,691. The staff met with the Corporate Services Committee on November 24th, and we reviewed in detail the operating budget and the proposed capital projects. We met again on December 2nd, where a recommendation to proceed with the budget presentation utilizing the 1% tax levy and 1% water sewer rate was passed. Just a note on the recreation, the Safe Restart money that we received, the $586,500, is only for operational expenditures. So what we've done in recreation, which is the department that has a majority of our revenue streams, we have budgeted those departments based on assumption of normal operations, and that is the only way that we will be able to determine what our COVID-related shortfalls are and be able to utilize some of the Safe Restart funding. So if there's no questions, we will get into the rest of the, whoops. Whoa, Logan, are you touching anything? Okay, there we go, we have a wild mouse. So we're going to start the presentation a little differently this year. We're going to show you the impact of the 1-in-1 that is being recommended by the Corporate Services Committee. So in 2020, an average house, which is just over $224,000, paid $3,900.52. This included their municipal taxes, their education, their water and wastewater, if applicable to their property, and their solid waste diversion fee. This same property in 2021 will pay $3,930.83. One of the key things about 2021 is that MPAC's 4-year phase-in has been deferred for a year. So normally we would be seeing the first year phase-in for the 21, 22, 23, 24 period. That has been deferred until 2022. So unless you have done any improvements or demolitions on your property, your assessment should remain the same as 2020. So there should be no assessment-related increases, or very few properties should see an assessment-related increase. They will basically just see the levy-related increase. So what this equates to on an average house in Temiskaming Shores is a $30.32 change. $9.62 for the water sewer bill, $20.70 on the tax bill. Every property is different. Not all properties are average. We have some properties that are lower, some properties that are higher. So these changes will be proportionate to the assessment based on the average property in Temiskaming Shores. The one thing we still do not know is the education tax. That is set by the Minister of Education, and we have not yet received the 2021 residential tax rate. The past 4 years, we have seen a consistent reduction in the education rates. So this $30.32 may actually be reduced further with a decrease in the educational residential tax rate. Is there any questions on what the 1-in-1 percentage that we're going to discuss from an operational perspective looks like to the taxpayer? Okay. So we were very proactive last year. We were very, very close to setting our final budget, and instead we ended up redoing our budget and basically restating it in relation to COVID. So in order to give a better comparison for our normal operations, apples to apples, we actually used our pre-COVID budget. So our council review budget that council had, that we were very, very close to passing, so that we were not going to be seeing significant increases because we did take into consideration all of the impacts of COVID last year or this year. So it's not the final budget we passed, but it's a more comparable budget. It's the budget we would have passed. So when you're looking at our 2020 final to our 2021 review, you're seeing that the municipal expenditures are reducing by $370,521, or 3.7% increase. Some of these changes relate to the organizational structure changes that we did in June, and of course we've looked at multiple other facets within our departmental budgets. Is there any questions? We also include external agencies in our budget, which is our policing and our health and social services. We are waiting, we have received our policing budget estimates for 2021. The only thing that is outstanding at this point is the funding for the court security and prisoner transport grant. Last year we received 153,400. So we've built in a similar number to that, but we have not yet been apprised of whether that funding is going to be in place for 2021, if it's going to be higher, lower, or non-existent. The health and social services, we've built in a 2.5% increase for DSAB and a 5% increase for the health unit. Both of those agencies, I believe, will be looking at passing their budgets in January. So we should have some final numbers after that. So the external agencies, unfortunately is seeing an increase of 136,952 or a 2.7% increase. So again, we will make sure that once we get all the actual budget estimates from these agencies, that we will incorporate them into the final budget bylaw. We have our capital financing, so these are all of the principal and interest payments that we have in relation to all of our borrowing. There's an increase this year. It's mostly in relation to the library debenture that was just passed last council meeting. So we're seeing an increase there of 41,000 or 4.7%. And unfortunately, we are seeing a decrease in our OMPF money again of 79,800 or 2.4%. So overall, this is what it looks like. Our municipal operations, although staff has done an excellent job bringing the operational expenditures that the municipality controls it down from previous years. We are seeing increases in our, decrease in our OMPF, which is a negative impact, and increases in our health and social services and policing budgets, which is also a negative impact. So overall, we're seeing a positive change for our tax levy. We only require $12,591,350 this year at this point, which is a decrease of $112,542 from last year, or 0.9% change. Any questions on the summary? Okay. So this is our so that was our general operations. This is an overview of our environmental operations. So again, we have administration, the changes based on the organizational structure, our sewage, water, our capital financing, and overall we're seeing a decrease in the funds required to cover our operations of $253,613, or a 5% decrease from 2020. Any questions? So we don't have as many charts and stuff as we did for the 2020 budget, but what we did do was we picked some key ones to identify to council. So as you can see, we have we've split the budget expenditures into three sections. The municipal control, so those are, okay, I don't want to hear myself. Thanks, Rebecca. So we control about 50%. So that's in relation to staffing, expenditures, projects, and stuff like that. That's what we can control. In our no discretion, we have our health unit and social services, our OPP, our capital financing, which is set once we execute those debentures, MPAC, and our ONR agreements. Under limited discretion, this is where we can do some control, negotiations, determining use of buildings, etc. So we're looking at heat and hydro, telephone, IT software contracts, our tax write-offs, our insurance, our benefit plan, and our aqua contracts. So you can see that we have a good control over about 50% of our budget, and no control over 33% of our budget. So it's still to the point where it's quite large on the portion of the budget that we have no access or no control over. Any questions on this? This is just a quick breakdown on our capital financing, how it's broken down between environmental. We have some transit financing that we've utilized to purchase a bus, our general financing, fleet, which is all part of our fleet replacement plan, and of course our new debenture, which is the library. This is similar to what we put in our final tax inserts. This just shows the breakdown of the net municipal operations between the different departments: governance, fire, ECDEV, recreation, property maintenance, public works, transit, library, and water and sewer. So it just gives a little synopsis of how big each piece of the pie is. So in your package on Friday, you were provided with a copy of the council training plan. So this is just a summary of that plan. So this is for council to discuss to see if that plan meets the needs for the 2021 fiscal year.
No, like Chris, you want to comment?
Just wondering if, Logan, could you bring up the revised plan that you and I did this morning? So I know Mayor Kidd has provided, circulated to various members of council their interest in training for this year. So we've revised it a little bit. It's a $50 change from what you were presented in your package. So looking at, council's already passed the recommendation or resolution on the Roma conference with the 3 members. For FNUM, looking at 5 members of council. So FNUM is going virtual this year, and there is no charge, there is no registration fee for FNUM. So that allows us some opportunity to look at having more council members take advantage of the training through FNUM. So looking at 5 members, and those are the 5 that have indicated to Mayor Kidd their interest in attending. And AMO is also going to be virtual this year, so looking at 2. We've removed the Northeastern Fire Education Conference, which is generally scheduled in March, because in all likelihood that will not be taking place, or if it will, we're running out of time really from a budget point of view. So we have, I know there's been some discussion and council may want to have others, but I'll just explain sort of what Logan and I have looked at. We have put in per diems based on the fact that even though it's virtual training, you're going to take time out of your schedule to participate in that training. And so we've built in those per diems. Whether or not council wishes to utilize them is really up to you guys, but for budgeting purposes, we've included the per diem in there because there is a commitment that you guys are going to have to make in order to participate in that training. And so the per diems are built in there. So it is a revised budget of $12,970, which is a $50 difference. When we took out 1 member from AMO, took out the Northeastern Fire Education Conference, and added 2 more for FNUM, and that actually changed it to a benefit by $50. So if you, Logan does have a resolution tonight. If you are comfortable in this plan that we've presented here, this revised plan, then you could pass a resolution endorsing this as your training plan for 2021. But I know there was some discussion, I believe, amongst some members about the per diem, and so we wanted to give council the opportunity to discuss that.
Yeah, I know with FNOM, everything's going to be pre-recorded. I'm not sure how much prior to the actual conference, but I mean, people will probably be able to listen to some of these sessions a few days before, a few days after, or maybe a month after, whatever. So I don't know how we deal with the per diems there. I mean, if somebody takes an hour or 2 here to listen to a session, another hour, another day to listen to a session, it's not, I don't think FNOM is really required that we sit for 2 days straight or 3 days straight. So if that's the format that we're looking at for that, I don't know what the format is for AMO, whether they're going to just run their virtual conference with live presenters for the 2 days that AMO is going on or not. So I don't really know that process yet, but I'm open for discussion as to how we handle the per diem, and do we leave it up to the councillors to decide how much time they put in for per diems. It's up to you guys. So Councillor Ferrier.
Thanks, Your Worship. For the FNOM conference, for me, I have no intention of putting a per diem in, so you can remove my $600 off of that request.
Other comments? Councillor MacArthur?
Yes, I think that if you're going to attend any of these conferences, you should be giving a verbal statement or a report on what you got out of that concert or that convention, or a written one. I think Councillor Whalen usually does a written one. It's very put together very professionally. I like to do it verbally, but I think you've got to come back and you've got to do something to the public eye of the taxpayer to let them know that you attended this and you took part in some workshops or the bear pit. And I still think that the per diem should be up to the individual councillor. If they don't want it, they don't take it. If they want it, they get it, but they've got to be justified in giving a report, at least 3 to 5 minutes if they're going to verbally do it.
Councillor Jelly?
Yes, I've always interpreted the per diem as being something that you were getting for being displaced from your residence and actually going away to a conference. Seeing as they're virtual, I personally won't be charging a per diem. As I said, I felt that was put in place so if you're inconvenienced and away from your home and that. In this case, we won't be because it's virtual, so I won't be, I think it should be left up to the individuals, but I won't be charging.
Other comments? Councillor Whalen?
Yeah, thank you. Not being a fan of virtual myself, but that is the reality we're living in. I know the AMO conference last year was 3 days of about 7 hours a day because it was an interactive conference. So if you're registered there, you're going to be busy, believe me. Same thing with the Roma conference. The only one that is questionable is my own conference, the Phenom one, because it's going to be pre-recorded. The municipalities will have an opportunity to send in their questions and the minister's responses will all be pre-recorded. But there will probably still be a couple of days of, 5 to 7 hours of viewing there. The only other thing I'd say is my own per diem, if I end up with a delegation on behalf of another organization, my per diem will go down because I'll charge it to them, but I'm good as it is. Like I say, at the end of a 6 or 7 hour day in a virtual meeting, you've earned your keep.
No, I think, this is for budget purposes there, so if we leave this the way it is there, and if people do feel that they're putting in a lot of hours listening to some of the sessions, they can put in for their per diem. If they're listening over an hour a day sort of thing, then maybe they're going to waive that per diem, but that'll be up to the actual councillor. So if that's council's wishes, I do have a motion, I'll read it. Be it resolved that Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores approves the 2021 Council Training Plan as presented. Mover, second, mover Councillor Foley, second by Councillor Jelly. Any last comment? All in favor? That is carried. Laura Lee, you're back on.
There we go. So again, you received all the package with all the detailed provisional budget sheets. The department directors and managers are here to assist with any questions. So feel free to ask if you have any from your review of the documents. So we'll start with administration. So this includes city manager, corporate services, finance, planning, cemeteries, tile drainage, clerk's department. So it's a very large component of the municipality. So in the corporate services component, we have some changes with the low interest rate. The investment opportunities are very not attractive at this point. So, and then of course our bank rate is also down. So we're seeing a proposed decrease there of about 40,000. We've incorporated our POA. This was based on the assumption that convictions were going to be back up as of November 2nd. That has now been delayed till end of February. So if you can't convict someone, you can't force them. There's no repercussions for getting the funds. So we'll revisit some of these numbers based on our preliminary budget under the assumption of the December 2nd date. We were anticipating an increase of 95.6. The administration and housing includes staff costs, office space, courtroom rental, stuff like that. We have our land leases. This includes our new hay cultivation agreements, which will be coming forth on December 15th. Logan, yes? December 15th? Oh, they're being tendered out, okay. So, but we've built in the proposed, based on the proposed rate that we will be looking at for the land. This is my last budget, so we've incorporated a 4-month shadowing position for my pending retirement. I'm smiling significantly under this mask, so.
This is where I cut your microphone off, so you can't say those kind of words.
Sorry.
You're cut
My
off.
husband's at home laughing.
You're cut off now.
I'm cut off now? Okay, I'll leave. We have our
You ought to turn your microphone back on.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, I'm on. There you go. Great West benefits, we're going to see an increase of $27,372. This is including the change to Manulife, our new provider, and the estimated rates that is coming from that tender. We have our doctor recruitment decreasing. We're just budgeting the city's contribution. We have our liability insurance increasing about $65,000, and there was an email sent out from Black River Matheson, I believe, to all the municipalities with regards to municipal insurance, liability insurance. And so as those have been coming in, they've been coming through me, and I've been informed to Shelley, and the increases across the municipalities it's just been ridiculous. So I think something might come of that with the fact that everyone is looking into those numbers. We have our municipal drain. This is anticipated work that will need to be required to be done for Peters Road, the Grant Drain, and the Nobles Drain. So overall in corporate services, we're seeing an increase of $76,460. In cemeteries, cemetery is a self-funded program, but we have seen over the last couple of years that we have been pulling money from our reserves to sustain our operations. So we are looking to do a fee review in 2021 that would be in effect for the 2022 fiscal year. So overall, from a expenditure perspective, we're seeing a decrease of $25.76. Planning and building services, we're proposing an increase in building permits of $30,000 based on projects that are in the HOP. So, and overall budget decrease of $36,356. So an overall administration budget increase of $62,619. Is there any questions with regards to administration?
Yes, I have one, and perhaps not necessarily directed at you, Laura Lee, but perhaps at corporate services themselves, and it has to do with the POA money. And I'm at a loss, and I've asked the question before, how come or why does not some of this money show in my police services board budget? This money is garnered from police activity provincially, and I just, when somebody asks me the cost of OPP policing, I can't give them a true cost if I don't know what revenue they've generated. I know, because it's there, but I'm wondering why this is not showing on my police services board budget.
So I can answer that. The fees that we receive are not just fees for Temiskaming Shores. They are fees for the entire district of Temiskaming that we oversee. This is all of our administrative costs that we utilize for POA. And there's parking fines in there. So the parking fines are incorporated and they're sent back to the municipalities, but we also have fines from the different ministries, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Transportation, MNR. So it's not just the City of Temiskaming Shores fines within the POA revenue stream.
I realize that, but is there not a method of determining what is? There's no method of doing that. There's no tracking system that you can pull that up. Okay. I guess I can't argue that, but I don't agree with it. But I mean, it's not your fault. Don't.
I've just been working closely with Julie on the POA stuff, and correct me if I'm wrong, Julie. There's no documentation as to determine where the fines are coming from. We do see a significant number coming from the Kirkland Lake area, but we can't say that they're not coming from everywhere, and that's why it's a pool of revenues, and that's why we've always had it within the administration budget, since administration is overseeing all the court services.
The only thing I might suggest is we might want to take a look at it, because we do get reports from the Ontario Provincial Police that tell us how many tickets are issued in our area, or at least I'm assuming it's just in our area, not the district of Temiskaming, because we are responsible for them. That information is available through them, as long as it's accurate. We could follow that up and I mean, I just think it's something, parking fines, like you said, and no, parking fines go into the department that actually administers or looks after the parking. So, I mean, it's good on one hand and it's not good on the other, but I think it's something that we should be taking a look at. Perhaps we can have further discussion in corporate services or whatever, but something I think we should look at so that, you know, we get an idea of the true cost of policing.
Councilor Ferrer, yeah.
Sure, yeah, and Doug, we did talk a little bit about it at the last corporate services meeting because that was the first request that had come to us. And, you know, for sure, for a matching principals perspective, if there's a way of being able to do it, you know, whether it shows up in this account or another one, what's important is we're really matching, you know, where it is. So, you know, I think your request is a good one, Doug, and if it's better matched there and we can validate it, then, you know, hey, I think that's where it should belong.
Okay, let's take a look at that sometime in the next few months there to see whether we come up with the data and see whether we can right that wrong there. So,
thank you.
Any other questions?
Doug, another question or?
Also included within the administration budget, we have a couple of operating projects this year. $1,200 to upgrade our aerial imagery. So this is what we use for our zoning maps for the land sales. When you see all the mapping and stuff for zoning amendments and land sales, etc. This is the mapping for building permit. We look at we're going to update that for 2021. And we're also going to utilize some of our safe restart funding to do the audio video upgrades to the council chambers, since audio and video requirements for the council meetings is probably going to continue well into 2021, and there's also going to be a POA component for that to continue for court services. No questions? We'll move on to fire. So fire and emergency management, we're looking at personnel equipment. So the fire chief is looking at a cylinder replacement program. So you all remember in 2017 we did the replacement of all the SCBAs. So this is ensuring that we start to see an annual replacement of those so that we don't have to do a significant capital project like we did back then. So he's looking at 2 cylinders a year at $1,500 each. Within his operating projects, he has a light kit for Station 3, suction gate valve for Station 3, hose for Station 2, 6 pagers for new hires, that's 2 per station, and all of these projects will be covered by the fire equipment reserve. So overall, we are seeing a decrease in the fire and emergency management budget of $75,830. Okay, then we have economic development. The largest reduction in this budget was just to his overall programs, and the budget itself is seeing a decrease of $56,824. Okay. So we'll move on to recreation. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, all of the revenues have been built in on the assumption of normal operations, and any shortfalls will be covered by the safe restart funding. In the Parks Department, we have our trails in Stato increase $4,000 for upgrades to Devil's Rock. And then we have in Buck Park. Buck Park was actually a very successful program this year. We actually are going to be transferring surplus reserves. And based on the budget for 2021, we will also see a transfer to reserves for surplus revenues. So that's very good. And I believe Matt is negotiating currently with the contractors for 2021 operations. In programs, his special programs include activities that were identified through the Recreation Master Plan. Matt, if you could just give a little brief list of what those particular projects are.
So there's 2 items within the special programs line item that we've identified as projects for 2021. One is the completion and printing of a city recreation guide, similar to what other communities are doing that hasn't been done here in the past. And the second is a community recreation night, tentatively scheduled for August, depending on restrictions at that point, to allow the community to come at a single point in time, see the various recreational offerings that are available within our community from the various providers within it.
Just one question for Matt there. Are we predicting the same kind of revenues as we looked at or actually received in 2019? Is that where we're coming up with the revenue estimates?
So the revenue estimates are based upon an average of the previous 2 complete years, so 2018 and 2019.
And incorporating any rate increases that had already been pre-budgeted by council as part of the previous plans. So in our operating project, again, these are some projects that again came out of the Recreation Master Plan. Murray Daniels Dog Park fencing, ball diamond safety upgrades, that's 4 fields, and an active transportation plan. We are also applying under the Inclusive Community Grant for an age-friendly project at $60,000, and it will be a project that is 100% funded if we are successful. Matt is currently working on the application as we speak. Well, not right now, but during work hours. Operating projects are for the budget is set at $138,250, and the offsetting revenues are incorporated in there for an overall recreation budget decrease of $22,851. Any questions?
Question, Jeff?
Yes, please. Thanks, Your Worship. And just around the revenues, so just so it's clear, we had passed a motion last year. We were going to increase the programming by 5%, and there was a few other things, and we ended up deferring all of those as a result of COVID. You're saying those are implemented back into these numbers?
No, we haven't implemented any fee increases. We've taken an average of the previous 2 years and used those to determine where they're going to be. When we originally did our budgeting, we budgeted at approximately 85% of that. However, to fully access that Safe Restart funding, we felt it best to take the course of action that we did to ensure that we could fully utilize it.
No, that's perfect. That's what I thought when I was going through the numbers. I thought when I heard we were implementing the rate increases, I just didn't see that come out of the numbers, so thank you for that.
What I meant for the rate increase, I meant like ice rates and stuff that had already been previously passed in the user fee bylaw. That's what I meant, not the new user fees and stuff like that. My apologies, I should have clarified that. So if there's no other questions for
Any other
Rich?
questions at all? We're good.
Property maintenance. We built in the revenues for the Haylor Medical Center. These include the annual rent increases for all of our lease agreements. Commercial lease agreements are not impacted by the rent freeze. We have a number of operating projects within property maintenance, as we always do. PFC Diamond Complex Eavesdrop, Diamond Hall lighting, New Liskeard Arena dressing room light replacements, the beach building renovation, a fire alarm for the New Liskeard Fire Station, window upgrades for CJTT building, and so we have set the operating project budget for all of these projects at $74,750. The overall property maintenance budget is seeing a decrease of $99,387. Majority of that change is in relation to the organizational structural changes. So for Public Works, under the roads, we're seeing a significant reduction in the training budget this year. We've reviewed the needs and adjusted accordingly. The bridges, every other year we do a a bridge inspection. It's a biannual bridge inspection. So of course that was done last year. You've received the report on that earlier this year. So no inspection is scheduled for this year. We've consolidated the accessibility account with our sidewalk account. And between those accounts, we're seeing an overall decrease of $5,000. The loose top budget line is inclusive for materials and trucking costs, and we have budgeted the ONR line item based on the actual agreements. We have in the past budgeted estimated work. We've determined that that has never worked for us because what ends up happening or not happening is out of our control. So we're going to budget based on the agreements that we have in place, and we will deal with any budget requests for additional work on an as-request basis. For winter control, we see the salt and sand is a decrease of $75,000. And then we have our snow removal line item, which includes rental of trucks, rental of blower for the rural areas, and the rental of graders. The overall transportation services budget is seeing a decrease of $70,921.
Questions? The salt and sand budget is decreased because of purchasing less salt, I believe. Mitch, or?
We actually took an average of the last 3 years and found that the budgets in the previous years were a little higher than they needed to be. Obviously, purchasing salt is always an unknown depending on the season we have, of course. But we feel pretty confident with the new budget for next year that we're going to be all right.
Okay, thank you, sir. Chris?
Mitch, if you could touch base too with the new system we have, we're able to actually monitor the amount of salt, sand and sweet mix that's being applied to the roads, which will help give us some better determinations in the future.
Yeah, so basically every piece of equipment that we use for winter maintenance now, because of our new GPS system, like Chris is saying, we'll actually track every time the operator pushes a button to spread either winter mix or salt. It's actually going to provide us with a report saying how much material was actually spread, so that we'll be able to more accurately budget going forward as well after this year.
Okay. Thanks, Mitch. Councillor Jelly.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mitch, but is there not some new standards also out for the use of salt on our highways?
There is basically a salt management program that we now have to follow, and every year we have to report on the amount of salt that we actually spread. In the past, unfortunately, with less accurate systems, it was a little bit of a guesstimate, for lack of a better word. With this system going forward, we will be much more accurate on that process.
Okay. Any other questions? Carry on. Thanks, Mitch.
Oops. So Public Works, continued solid waste. So based on the proposed budget.
Okay, solid waste, we're seeing an increase in the cobalt agreement of 20,000. All of our contractual agreements have been adjusted for CPI. We require additional monitoring fees for the Haileybury landfill site of 20,000. We are going to be transferring to reserves $2 per cubic yard. We have 2 operating projects within solid waste. One is for capping at the landfill site in Haileybury. The other is for some additional recycling and garbage containers. And we will be utilizing the landfill reserve and the solid waste reserve to cover those 2 projects. Overall, the solid waste budget is seeing a decrease of $31,066. Good. Under fleet, we have a decrease in the fuel account of 25,000, a decrease in the parts and equipment account of 10,000. We have paid off our final payment in 2020 for our capital lease program, so that's the 3 pieces of equipment that we had purchased through our Scotia equity line. And we are seeing an overall fleet budget decrease of 76,500 for an overall public works budget decrease of 178,487.
Any questions? Carry on, ma'am.
Transit. In transit, what we have done is we have put a portion of the manager of transportation services wages and overhead into the budget. He spends a significant amount of time dealing with transit related issues, so we felt it fair to put within that budget. That of course will be picked up by Cobalt, will pick up its 13.19% share of that. There's an increase in materials of 25,000 for an overall budget increase to the city of 10,532, which is a 4% increase in the transit budget as per the approved financial plan that council has previously adopted. And in library, we're seeing an overall increase of $2,275.
Chris?
If I could just add on transit, it's similar to recreation. We have budgeted revenues as if it is a normal year, We have submitted our intent to apply under Phase 2 of the Safe Restart funding specific for transit, and that if there are any shortfalls, we will be able, hopefully if we're approved for Phase 2 funding, we'll be able to use the Phase 2 funding to help offset any decreases in 2021. Certainly in transit, we have seen a decrease in ridership with the college being closed physically right now for students. There's a lot of online learning, but there were a lot of students that were coming in, and with people a little bit hesitant to do a lot of traveling, a lot of our seniors and that, we've seen some decrease in ridership there. So, however, in looking at the October numbers, we are seeing improvements. So in the month of October, we were still down in revenues by about $4,000 for the month. So if that trend continues, hopefully we will be able to use the Phase 2 funding.
External agencies. So under policing, as we said at the beginning of the meeting, we are still awaiting confirmation of the funding for the court security and prisoner transport grant. So right now, with utilizing the 2020 number for that grant, we are looking at a policing increase of $41,594. We've budgeted a 5% increase for the health unit, $37,693. A 2.5% increase to DSAB, $57,665. And we have a decrease to our OMPF of $79,800 for an overall increase in this budget of $216,752 change, sorry. And this is not a positive increase.
Chris?
If I could, and Councillor Jelly may want to jump in, so under the court security and prisoner transportation grant, that program is currently under review. I know Councillor Whalen has been involved from an AMO perspective in that review process, and Councillor Jelly and I and the board secretary Kelly Conlon recently submitted some input to the on the survey that the ministry was conducting on the importance of maintaining the court security and prisoner transportation grant, particularly since, in our opinion, we are looking after a provincial service, really, and that if we're already dealing with a 2-year lag in the reconciliation of court security costs, and if we were to lose that funding of $153,000, it would certainly have a significant impact on the city of Temiskaming Shores. But our courthouse services a much larger area than just Temiskaming Shores. It includes the district of Temiskaming, but also any charges that may be laid on provincial highways and so on, which could be people from outside of even our own district.
Councillor Jelly?
Yes, and just further to what Chris has said, we also serve as part of the district of Nipissing, as Temiskaming falls under the Temiskaming detachment. So anyways, it's not right, but we'll see what we can do.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So in our capital financing, we actually do have a couple of decreases. General projects were down by $5,000, and on our transit, $1,900. So we do serial debentures. So we keep the principal payment the same every month or every quarter, whatever the term is of the repayment. And so what that does is it decreases our interest annually. So it also allows us to pay things off faster, and we actually save on the interest component of it. So we're seeing those two line items decrease. We're seeing a fleet increase of $2,105. The fleet replacement plan overall expends over general and environmental fleet, and is a total of $500,000, majority of which is in the general fleet, but a portion is in the environmental budget also. And then of course we have the biggest increase, which is the library. That debenture bylaw was just executed on December 1st. We will be receiving the funds on December 15th, and the payments will start in March of 2021. So overall, we are seeing a capital financing budget increase of $41,227.
Any questions? Yeah, Councillor Jelly, sorry.
Yes, is the new van for Station 2, is that included in your fleet costs? Or is that coming up later?
When we discuss capital, it would be incorporated within the 500,000.
Okay, just the documents that I was reading over today, it shows the cost of that, estimated cost of that van at 300,000. I believe we had a discussion the other day in a meeting where it was recommended it raised to 405,000.
We'll be discussing that tomorrow at our capital meeting.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
We'll have to pass an amendment to that resolution if we're going to change that amount, but yes. Good morning.
Yes,
Capital
we
budget.
will be discussing all the capital, and that is one of the items that we have identified in the capital presentation for discussion purposes. Irregardless of what value that vehicle comes in at, the fleet replacement plan is set at 500,000 for repayment by council. So irregardless of whether it's the 300,000 or the revised value, it would be incorporated within that $500,000 repayment. Don't jump ahead. So we're going to move on to environmental. Oh, sorry. Let me go back here for a sec. Is there any questions in relation to any of the general operating? This is live. General operating budget.
Any questions?
Okay. So we'll move on to environmental services. As we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we are looking at recommending a 1% increase in the water sewer rates. The plan originally was a 2% annual increase. We have skewed away from that a couple of years. The one year we did a 4% increase. The one year we did a $100 increase for residential. And based on the capital requirements for this year, we feel that a 1% is a justified increase. 2% would be in starting to get where we'd be transferring too much to reserve. So under administration, we have a decrease in our wages, Great West Life, and overhead of $168,944. This relates directly to the organizational chart changes and the elimination of 2 operator and training positions. So we used to have 50% of 2 public works guys work in water for 6 months of the year as part of this OIT training. That is not in place at this time. There's no interest, so we do not have that component within our budget. And a training decrease of 24,600. Let me just clarify the training. It looks like a significant decrease. It's actually only 8,600. There was a little bit of when we were doing the consolidation of accounts last year, when you consolidate accounts, there was a step I missed in consolidating the travel and training for environmental services. So it actually doubled the budget, which ended up getting passed, which has subsequently been fixed. But from a budget to budget component, there is a significant decrease in those line items. So I owe Steve a chocolate bar on that one. So it's all my bad. But we have fixed it. All of the consolidations that we have done throughout the budget have been verified and fixed. Sewage treatment and collection, we're seeing an increase of 33,131, and water treatment and distribution, we're seeing a decrease of 97,704, which is mostly in relation to water breaks. Yes, Steve? Water breaks? Water breaks. Steve has done some estimates based on average numbers of breaks per year, and we have incorporated that within the budget. And the capital financing is a decrease of 14,333, and we did not have any new borrowing in 2020 for environmental services. Any questions?
Unless we get funding for the UV system, we won't be attacking that project this year in 2021, eh? So, no. Yeah.
So again, we also have $300,000 worth of operating projects within environmental services, related equipment maintenance for both water and sewer, master electrician, facility maintenance in both, pH monitor, reservoir pressure transmitter, reservoir ammonia chemical tank, SCADA system, and a ferric chemical pumps at the lagoon. And also what's not on here is a ferric tank level indicator for the lagoon. So within those 2 line items, it comes to 300,000. This line item used to be 500,000, and it has decreased to 300,000 over the years. And overall, we're seeing a decrease in the operational requirements for environmental services of 253,613.
Any questions for Steve? It's not.
So risks to the budget. So these are just identifying some items because we still have not received our final confirmations on them. So again, our court security and prisoner transportation grant, the union negotiations have been finalized and built into the operating budget that was provided to you on Friday. Management negotiations are upcoming now. We have the DSAB budget and the health unit, which we won't know those exact numbers until January. And then we have the TSSHC tax write-off agreement, which has a $905,000 cap. Construction is not complete yet, so we probably will not see what the assessed value of that project is until maybe sometime in 2021, maybe not until 2022. So these are just identifying some risks to the budget that we will incorporate once we have some final information on them.
Questions, Councillor Ferrier?
Not a question, a comment. I would really refer that to management discussions rather than management negotiations, but just my thoughts.
I'll call it in management negotiations. Any other questions on the risks to the budget? Okay. So all of these changes within the operational budgets, this is what it ends up looking at. We require $11,675,520 for operations.
We're going 11 million.
11 million. 1100,000, yeah. 11 million. It's a little bit here. 11,675,520 for our operations. Capital financing of 915,000, and that leaves us, if we build in the 0.3% growth and a 1% tax levy increase from 2020, leaves us taxation of $13,902,916, which then breaks down into this. It's an increase from 2020 of $185,068. $47,691 is the growth from 2020, so that's new assessment. $137,377 is the 1% tax increase, as supported by the Corporate Services Committee. The $12,591,350 is our operational and capital financing needs, which has a transfer to our capital envelope of $1,311,566. So that's what the 1% and all of the budget presented tonight will provide. Any questions?
Comments? Go ahead, Jeff.
Sure, not a question, but I do want to make a few comments just from the discussions we had at Corporate Services. So if we deal with just the operating budget alone, with what we have control over from the different department heads, we're actually, when we take into consideration the restructuring we did, through the recommendations from all the different department heads, we actually seen a savings of a little more than $250,000, and that flowed through the budgets. So when you also look at some of the savings we've seen in a number of other activities, we actually seen savings in the operating budget that were over $300,000. So really that puts us in a nice position as far as the operating goes within the municipality. So we actually could have seen about a 1% reduction in property taxes to the ratepayers, and that would give us a break-even piece as far as the operating budget goes. However, when we had the discussions, and if we remember what we did with regards to COVID when it first hit, there was a number of capital projects that were deferred. So we did put some money into reserves. But there was a number of other things that took place. And when we look at the capital component of things, and we look at the size of the capital that we're looking at spending this year, we'll have that discussion tomorrow night. But that's being taken into consideration in the capital financing number that we're seeing here. So in order for us to be able to fund that capital at that level, we do still need to look at increasing what we're collecting from our ratepayers. So that's a piece we'll talk a little bit more tomorrow. So whether the $11 million capital project is the right number or not, what we need from a funding perspective for 2021 is $900,000. The challenge or the opportunity we need to manage is really, we're only looking at capital for next year or for 2021. What does the capital program look like for the next few years? Because as you can see, when we looked at the budget, our capital financing budget actually increased by $41,000. Not taking into consideration our existing capital program that we're looking at for 2021. So that number is going to continue to compound and grow. So we need to really take a look at that. And that's why from the Corporate Services Committee, we are recommending that we do, even with COVID and a number of the challenges that we're seeing, and we have reduced our operating budget, still looking at increasing the taxes really to get a handle on what we can afford from a capital perspective, and that will help us as we continue to move forward. So just that's really the discussions we had at Corporate Services, and I just wanted to share that with everybody tonight. So thank you.
Any other comments, questions at this point? Okay.
So this is the same snapshot for environmental?
Services. We require $3.466 million for operations. Capital financing, $700,000. The revenues built in with a 1% water sewer rate increase are $5,039,609, which leaves us with an $872,684 transfer to the capital envelope for environmental services.
Any questions at this point?
So we're back to the tax scenario. Just as a wrap up for the presentation, this is what all of the budget numbers and the estimates that we have from the agencies that we are awaiting final budgets that we will incorporate. But as this budget sits right now, a 1% tax levy increase, not a tax rate increase, a tax levy increase, and a 1% water sewer residential change for this particular slide is an overall change on an average property within Temiskaming Shores of $30.32, or a 0.78% increase from 20 to 21. So that is all we have for operations tonight. Is there any other questions that you've had during your review of your documents that were sent to you, or anything else that you want to discuss from an operations perspective?
Any questions? Just want to, okay, Jeff, go ahead first.
Yeah, so not a question, but maybe one of the other areas of risk, for us when we look at the budget and we're looking at the rate increases, and it really is around our small business community. The assumption in here is that everybody is going to be continuing to operate throughout 2021, and with a lot of the challenges, and who knows where COVID is going, that could be a hidden risk with regards to the number of ratepayers that we may have at the end of the day. And I think, I mentioned it at our last meeting, the more we can support our local businesses through these challenging times, that it's just going to make our community that much stronger. So,
thank you. Other comments, Chris?
Just quickly, I know we've gone through this in about an hour. I can tell you it took us much more than an hour to get all these numbers compiled. So, but based on some decisions that council made in the last year, as far as organizational structure that really helped us out, I do want to take the opportunity to really thank all of our team here from a staff perspective, who put in a lot of work in compiling the numbers and really taking some good time this year to evaluate everything and come up with an operational budget that, in my opinion, I'm very confident in the numbers that we're presenting to you tonight. As Councillor LaFerrier mentioned, we are coming in with some operational savings of around $370,000 on a year-over-year. We do continue to see those pressures from external agencies, so even though we were able, through some staffing changes that Council looked at and some operational efficiencies that staff looked at, we were able to come in with that $370,000. $216,000 of that right away got gobbled up by external agencies for which we as a municipality have no control over. And so that continues to be a challenge for us and will continue to be a challenge for Council, in addition to the pressures of capital financing and capital replacement. But I do feel very confident in the numbers that we've presented here tonight, and just wanted to take the opportunity to thank all of the staff who have put in a tremendous amount of time over the last 2 months or so. And we do think it's a plan that is still an increase to the ratepayer, but we have tried to keep it, I'm hoping Council agrees, within a reasonable amount at a 1-and-1, and still be able to meet both our operational needs. I know we're going to talk about capital tomorrow, but we'll also be able to address, I think, some of our capital needs within that 1% levy increase and 1% water sewer rate increase. So anyway, that's my comments. Thanks.
Councillor Whalen.
Yeah, I know it's not like me to sit during a budget presentation and not ask questions, but I've seen this in public works, building maintenance, and corporate services. I did go through the numbers. You know, not changing in them, maybe shuffling some around, but the numbers all stay the same. But I will say, like, when we talk about COVID at home as homeowners, we figure if we get a vaccination by September, that means 2021 still dedicated to COVID as a homeowner. Same thing if you're a business owner. But I really think this is a good step. I think the decisions that Council has made in realigning some staff duties and the actions that staff have taken on these numbers, I'm more than happy with this. And but as Jeff mentioned, tomorrow night when we do capital, we have to keep in mind that as much as the city is affected this year and next year by COVID, so is everybody else that we're sending a tax bill to. So, thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments I wanted to make. I mean, I do look at the economy in this area. I mean, we do have a lot of new developments. I know there's businesses that are on the ropes there, but there is a new development in our industrial park. There's new development at Beach Gardens. Jarlett's will phase in some taxes in the future, may not in 2021, but definitely in 2022 and 3. There's a couple other projects going as well that are going to start generating some more revenues coming in for the city. So that's very positive for the area there. We do have to get through 2021. But, so the other comment, I just wanted to correct Laura Lee. When you said you've been working on this for 2 months, I think Chris started on this about 4 months ago. I know he was in meetings in September. They were asking for different departments to put in their operating budgets back in September. So this is going on for 4 months. And I like the way things have operated this year. I mean, Chris has gone out to the different directors and different managers and worked with them, right down to the public works supervisors and that, and got them involved in the process as well in the fire departments. So I think that process has worked out very well, and I commend Chris for taking that initiative and going back and developing those budgets right from scratch there for a lot of them there. So I want to thank Chris, all the directors, all the managers, Laura Lee, and everybody involved there for all the work that they've done over the last 4 months. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Kidd. If there are no further questions, thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time this evening. I will see you back here again tomorrow at 6 o'clock where we will discuss capital. Thank you and have a good night.
We do have a motion. Be resolved, the Council of the City of St. George hereby acknowledges the presentation of the 2021 municipal operating budget. Who would like to move and second that motion? Councillor Ferrier, second by Councillor MacArthur. All in favor? That is carried. And motion, be resolved, the Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores agrees in principle to a 1% levy increase and a 1% water and wastewater charge increase for the 2021 budget. Mover and a seconder, move Councilor Ferrier, second by Councilor Jelly. Any questions, comments at this point? All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, Laura Lee. Motion be resolved that City Council hereby adjourns at 7:09. Moved by Councilor Foley, second by Councilor Hewitt. All in favor? That is carried. We are adjourned, and we'll see everybody back here at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. I didn't ask the public whether there's any comments. Shelley, was there any comments at all? Any comments from anybody in the audience? So, okay. Thanks, everybody. We are adjourned. Thank you.